If there's no you, there's no flight attendant. Hey crew, welcome back to my channel for another flight attendant video. For those of you who are new, my name is Bridget. I'm a New York City based flight attendant, and today I wanted to do a special video for all of the new hire flight attendants, so stay tuned. So as you can see by the title, this is 14 tips for a new hire flight attendant. I know that coming on the line, you can feel like you are thrown to the wolves and you don't feel like you really know how to do your job. So I just wanted to give a few tips that I think would have been helpful when I came on the line as a new flight attendant, and I wanted to pass them on to you. So the first thing that I want to touch on is the galley. If you guys don't know, you will learn very quickly. The galley is basically your office of the plane. So once you come on the plane and you see the galley in a certain way, neat, clean, everything put away, the best practices is to leave the galley the same way when you're getting off the plane for the next crew. You don't want to leave a mess for the outbound crew to now have to clean up after you because it's not their responsibility. So always leave the galley in the manner that you received it. Tip number 2 is always pack an extra uniform. I should take my own advice in this and pack extras, but I don't. Don't be like me. Pack your extra uniform, because most of the time when you're a new hire, depending on your airline, you may be straight reserve. You don't know where they're sending you. Your schedule may say you're ending today, but they could reroute you, add more legs on, lay you over when you were supposed to be done. So always have extras so that you are prepared for the next day or days to come. Tip number 3 that I didn't know, because once I became a flight attendant, it was my first time in the airline industry and I didn't know the customs or practices that went on until I became a flight attendant. So one thing that I will always recommend is having dollar bills in your wallet, your purse, your whatever you carry with you, your tote bag, to tip the van drivers. It is customary to tip the van drivers at least $1. Most of the time it's only $1. Some people tip more. It depends on what you can afford and what your preference is when you are being picked up and when you're being taken back to the airport. So make sure you have the tip money for the van driver. It's not mandatory, but it is the customs, and it is just our way of saying thank you to the van driver for coming to pick us up, putting our luggage in, and the whole works. Tip number 4 is something that you need to engrave in your mind. Do not make plans on your layovers, and do not make plans on your days off or on the day your trip is supposed to end, because things change in the blink of an eye. I always say in my videos, you need to be a palm tree and go with the wind, because that's what you signed up for when you became a flight attendant. You signed up to be at the disposal of your company and to go wherever they need you to go. So don't make plans, because most of the time they won't happen. Tip number 5 is a really big one that I want to stress for you guys. You will learn service or the flow of service on the line. Training is more safety related to make sure that you know all the things that are required as a flight attendant in the event of emergency, and that you can be legally considered a flight attendant by the FAA. But the service part, typically you learn as you start flying. I know it can be stressful to feel like you don't know how to do your job because you weren't shown that in training, or if you were shown service, it was kind of brushed over. But the more you fly, the more you will pick up the routine. You'll pick up your own routine of how things work for you and what makes your service flow better. Tip number 6 is very serious, and I want you guys to take seriously, is do not overwork yourself. I understand in the beginning you're not being paid that much, but burnout is real, and you do not want to work yourself to the point where you have no more left in you, or you make a rash decision and decide like, maybe this isn't for me. Yes, you want to make the money, and yes, you want to travel to all these destinations, but take your time. Your body has to get accustomed to flying all the time. Flying does wear down on your body, and you want to take care of yourself. If there's no you, there's no flight attendant. So take care of yourself. Do not burn yourself out. The flights, the trips will be there. Tip number 7 is so serious if you're a commuter. Have a plan B, C, D, E, F, all the way to Z when you are commuting, because the first flight may have a maintenance delay, or it may be weather, or something may be going on with the airline and they had to cancel the flight, or it's a rolling delay. You need to have backup plans, whether that's another airline's flight, going to a co-terminal in the city that you're based, driving, riding the bus, the train. Have your backup plans, because you calling saying, oh, well, I can't make it because the flight isn't going to get there on time, that's not an acceptable answer. It's your responsibility to be there on time, whether that means you have to leave the night before. Always have your backup plans for commuting. Tip number 8. This goes in line with service. Obviously, when you start, you don't know, and that's okay. If you don't know, ask questions. Yes, there may be flight attendants whom you may not feel comfortable with asking them questions, but try and ask someone else on the crew, because if you don't ask and if you don't know, how are you going to learn? Tip number 9 is a really big thing. Your crew is your team. You need to stick together. If someone on the crew is doing something wrong or you have a problem with them, the best way to resolve this issue is to speak to them. We're all adults. Pull them aside, let them know whatever conflict or issue you have, and move on from there. The worst thing you can do is to go and tell on someone when you could have resolved the issue between you two and not getting other people involved. Tip number 10, I think, is the most important tip of this whole video. Know your work rules. I cannot stress that enough. You need to know your work rules so that if scheduling or the company is trying to assign you something that is outside of your work rules, you speak up and say, hey, this work rule says this. You're not allowed to do this, or by my understanding, this is not allowed, because they will use you and abuse you if you let them. And don't be one of those people that get used and abused. Know your work rules. Stand up for yourself. I'm not saying be disrespectful, but know your work rules so that if anything sounds fishy, you can go back and refer to your work rules and speak to the company and say, hey, this isn't making sense. Can you explain to me? Because based off of this work rule, it says this isn't allowed. Tip number 11, set a specific ringtone for crew scheduling. In a previous video, I think it was my story time, I shared with you guys what my ringtone is. If you haven't seen that story time, the long day in Long Beach layover, I'll link it right here. But I have a specific ringtone for crew scheduling so that anytime my phone rings and I hear that ringtone, I know who it is. It's so bad that even if it's not my phone ringing and it's someone else's, say I'm in the mall or I'm in the store and I hear it, I'm like, oh my gosh, crew scheduling is calling me. So have a specific ringtone for them so you know. Tip number 12. I recommend having doubles of all of your toiletries or items that you pack. Shout out to Worlds of Wiz, because she's the one who gave me this tip and I definitely agree with it, but shout out to you, because trying to pull the stuff from your bag to use back at home, put the stuff back into your bag to use back at work is a lot. Have stuff that stays specifically in your bag for work and have another set that stays at home so you don't have to mix and match in between the two supplies. Tip number 13, develop a work routine and a hotel routine. When I say that is talking about service for work. Have a flow that works for you. If it's how you set up your cart, how you deliver your service, in the guidelines of your airline, you want to follow your airline's policies for service. But if it is how you set up things in the galley for you, have a routine so that you're not all over the place and things just flow. That's the same for the hotel. Have a routine as to where you put your stuff every time in the hotel. So when it's time to leave, you can go around the room because you know this is where I put this when I'm in the room. This is where I put this. And you're not leaving things or forgetting things in hotel rooms. Tip number 14. This is our last tip. Invest in a portable charger. You will be on the planes for hours. Some planes do not have outlets depending on what type of aircraft you're flying. You may have a work device that has to be charged to a certain percentage throughout the day, or your personal phone. Have that portable charger so you can plug that in between flights, during the flight while you're working, so that your battery is always on 100%. All right, crew, so that's it for my tips for new hires. Once again, I wanted to say congratulations to all the new hire flight attendants who are coming onto the line. Hopefully I will be able to see you guys in the friendly skies soon. If you were a flight attendant, Comment down below some more tips for new hires that you wish you knew when you became a flight attendant. As always, thanks for watching this video, and I will see you in my next video. Stay safe and see you soon.